Salve discipuli. Today we're going to continue with chapter 10. So you're going to want to be on page 68 in your books. A couple of things about your nouns this week. Make sure that you're familiarizing yourself with both forms of the Latin. There's a reason why we memorize those. Remember, you're only going to be able to tell what declension and then what endings to use for a noun if you know the second form. We're not going to pronounce the vocabulary today, but I would like for you to take a second and just review those words. Make sure they're kind of getting into your brain. All the Latin forms, gender on nouns, all of that. You know what to do by now, hopefully. And then just take a look at the motto at the top of the page. We haven't talked about that yet. The motto this chapter is from Connecticut, and it is Qui transtulit sustinet, which means he who transplants sustains. That is from Psalm chapter 79 from the Vulgate, and basically it's talking about when the Israelites were uprooted from Egypt and the Lord brought them out and sustained them even in the wilderness. So that's a pretty cool motto. Qui transtulit sustinet, and that is the chapter 10 motto. Okay, if you look at your chapter 10 vocabulary words, just to review, to find the declension of a word and then what endings to use for it, you're going to go to the second form of that word. So for example, corpus, corporis is your first word. So you would go to the second form and it ends in an is, an is. That is going to mean you're automatically in third declension, which is our new endings. Now we have two different third declension charts, third declension masculine/feminine and third declension neuter. Corpus corporis is, as you see in your vocabulary, it is neuter. So you're going to be using third declension neuter endings. If you look down through your list and find euenis, that is about halfway down your noun list. That second form also ends in an is, which means it's going to be third declension. That word can either be masculine or feminine, depending on whether it's talking about a young man or a young woman. So you're going to use the third declension masculine/feminine endings for that word. If you look further and find repi, that second form ends in an ae, which means it's not an is, and therefore we're not going to use our third declension endings for that word. That's actually going to go back to first declension, and you're going to use your first declension feminine endings for that one. The very next word is rewus, rewi. Again, the second form ends in an I, not an is, so we're not going to use our new third declension endings for that one. And it is masculine, so we would use second declension masculine. All of your third declension words, so corpus, caput, all of those have an irregular first form, which means whatever is that first form, that's what's going to go into your nominative singular. So again, if you're going to take a look at chapter page 69, the chart is the third declension masculine/feminine endings. The nominative singular has a star in it, and that just means that whatever the first form of your word is that's listed in your vocab, that's what goes in the nominative singular. They give you two examples for the masculine/feminine chart. That is rex and uxor. Rex and uxor are both the first forms of that word that you find in the vocabulary, and so that's what goes in the nominative singular. The rest of the chart, you're going to find the stem and then add your new endings. For neuter is the last lesson that we did, and it's a little bit different because it has two stars in it, nominative and accusative. That's because of the neuter rule. The nominative and the accusative have to match. So for neuter, you're going to use the stem for all of the forms except nominative and accusative singular. And if you look at the top of page 70, they have done iter for you. Iter, itineris is how it is listed in your vocab. So your stem is actually itiner, but you're not going to use itiner in the nominative or accusative singular because the first form is going to go in there. So the nominative singular is iter, and that's what's listed in the accusative singular as well. So be really careful with neuter, especially don't just go ahead and write your stem all the way down because accusative singular is going to match the nominative. For your exercise today, what you're going to be doing is parsing some nouns. Not all of them are third declension, so you're going to want to make sure that you have your reference sheet out and ready to go because it might use first declension endings, second declension, or third. So be really careful with those. I'm going to give you a couple of examples of that before you get started. So if you look back at your vocab list, that might help you as well. I might give you the form patribus. Patribus. And to parse that, you would give me declension, case, number, and translation. For several of these, there's multiple options, so you can pick one if that's the case. So patribus, first of all, you need to figure out what declension that word is. So look at your vocab, and it is pater, patris. So patris is the second form. It ends in an is. That means we are in third declension. So when you're looking for the ending, you're only going to be looking at third declension endings. So declension would be third. I like to do gender next, just because it's listed right there in your vocab. So gender, obviously pater, patris, is masculine. So we would say third declension masculine. Case, if you look at your third declension masculine / feminine endings, case would be, the ending is ibus, so you would have either dative or ablative. Number is plural. So we would have third declension masculine, dative or ablative, plural. And then translation, if you picked dative, you would say to the fathers. And if you picked ablative, you would say by the fathers. And that is how you parse a third declension noun. So again, make sure that you figure out what declension the noun is first, because that will tell you which chart you're looking at. If you look at the neuter endings for just a second, at the top of page 70, and then if you find the nominative plural and accusative plural endings are both an A. And you're going to see that ending in multiple places. You're going to see that in third declension neuter, you're going to see an A in second declension neuter, and you're going to see an A in first declension feminine. So the trick is to just make sure that before you get started on the ending, you know what declension a noun belongs to, so that narrows down what chart you're looking at. And again, if you have any questions about any of that, please let me know. Feel free to chat me, email me, whatever you need to do. Don't forget to do your vocabulary list and your Vulgate assignment. And then your next lesson will include the Chapter 10 quiz. That will be open book. And again, if you have any questions about all of that, please feel free to let me know. That's all for today, and Walete Discipuli.